Welcome, everyone, to the Leading Together podcast, Insights for Delaware's Tomorrow. In each episode, we sit down with the top minds from across the country and right here in Delaware to share their perspectives in ways that help advance First Aid Educate's mission, which is to build capacity, raise awareness, and really elevate school board leadership across our communities. I'm your host, Julia Keleher, Executive Director of First Aid Educate. Thank you for joining us today. I have an exciting show planned for you today, an interesting perspective with a woman who has a great deal of experience. She sits at the intersection of one of the most enduring truths in public education, which we all know, and sometimes it's hard to understand why we don't see it, but when families, educators, and communities are moving in the same direction, everything in the whole system works better. So you're going to enjoy the conversation, a lot of insights to share. But Nikkie Gullickson has spent years trying to make this alignment possible. She's a longtime PTA leader at the local, state, and national levels. She's been an advocate in Congress. I mean, she's walked those halls and really tried to push for stronger family engagement. And I think laws are one way, but she was also looking for the funding to make sure that students with disabilities and other school board members that have that same commitment to her to the work she brings are represented and are able to do that great work across the nation. But what I appreciate most about Nikkie is that she doesn't see advocacy as sort of like a checkbox or a title. She's really, and you'll hear in this conversation, I mean, she's just rooted in relationships and making sure that information is out there and families have access. So I'm thrilled to introduce you, Nikkie. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I want to, I mentioned it a lot in the introduction, right? Like connected to family. Your leadership in this space is really just connected to family and community, and your early experiences in PTA. So kind of walk us through how did this become your life's work?
Well, I was raised by a family of educators, so I got to see firsthand some of the struggles and some of the needs. And when my oldest daughter started kindergarten, I got on the PTA because I thought I want to see how things work. I want to find out who to talk to, who not to talk to, how to get things done, and just kind of how things flow. And you learn very quickly when you start advocating for your own child. It's a no-brainer, of course, that if it works for your kiddo, there's a lot of other kiddos that can benefit from that too. So then you just work to lift the tide, all boats float in a rising tide. So yeah, we just worked for that.
So the driving force there is really, I guess, saying in each one of us, there's something that would be good for the system. And maybe that's where the community, each one of us has something to bring to the conversation. And when we, in helping ourselves and helping our own families, we're also helping other families and the rest of the community.
Absolutely. Because when you're engaged at the level that I was in the school buildings, I saw what the teachers were struggling with or needed in their classrooms. I saw how that played out with the kids. We've also looked at a ton of data that shows that when family is engaged, our students do so much better when they have that support at home and even in school. Parents think I'll drop my kiddo off at school and then I'll support them at home. But it just raises the stakes for everybody when the parents are involved in the school or with the classroom or with the teachers in that way too.
It's an interesting point because you're saying really that if, seeing it firsthand is one thing, but then you also validated it with data, right? I mean, you weren't looking to take this anecdotal approach. You're like, it seems to be a trend. And then really the data was bearing that out, that same thing.
Yeah.
So was being in the PTA like that, it sounds like it was sort of fundamental, right? To how you began this work. And so from there, what was next?
From there, I moved from my elementary school. I had 3 kids go through that elementary school. And as I progressed through middle and high school, I remained involved. We had a city council, and I thought that was pretty impressive because that was information that was coming from our state to our local units. And then I went on to sit on the state board. So with technology and things, we didn't need in North Dakota to be able to have that middle, but we communicated right straight with our units so that they had the information coming straight from national, because PTA is a grassroots child advocacy organization. It looks different at each level. because we engage families differently at each level. But ultimately, the goal is to advocate for our kids and our families.
Mhm. And so then let's talk a little bit about the work you've done on policy related things that
Mm.
care about or families care about, school safety, mental health, special education. Why these issues, and what role do families play in making sure that those policies reflect the students' needs?
Well, who better to know what's best for their kids than parents? So when
Mhm.
those parents get involved and can work with the school system together as a whole, or work with legislators as a whole, hey, here we have a need, we want to push to get there. I've been told in Washington that the most powerful thing we can do is walk into a senator's office or
Mm,
a representative's office. They said when someone takes the time to actually walk into our office, that is
mm,
way more powerful. Now, not everybody has the means to get to Washington.
mhm.
We've done that a number of different ways. I also serve our local school board. I serve on our state school board association. But if you can walk in when those folks are at home, if you can walk into
Mhm.
their offices, have a conversation, show up in the lobby, send the emails, it's so powerful. They know
Yeah,
everybody can't step through the door, but do what you can. And the bigger the
yeah.
numbers, the more impact you have.
So what if there's someone who can do it, but is hesitant because it feels like, "Oh, I can't do that," right? What
No,
what what
just do
kind
it.
of
Just do it. And that's exactly what we heard on the Hill. They don't care how
Mhm,
polished you are. You don't have to
mhm,
come in with PowerPoints, papers, numbers, all these things. What they really want is their
mhm,
constituents as they are to
mhm.
approach them and embrace whatever it is that they're supporting. Because what they
Yeah,
want to see is that passion. And even if you
mhm.
stumble, even if it's not perfect, even if you
Yep,
trip walking down the hall, it's no big deal.
right.
And that's really how I got started. You just kind of have to just take a deep breath and just go for it. And now I really love that piece.
Mhm. So do you do any work sort of encouraging or coaching other people to get ready
Mhm.
to go down there? Yeah, and that
Yes,
must be rewarding.
yes. And thankfully through PTA we have that opportunity at least once a
Mhm,
year. And during COVID years we had to do it virtually, but we were able to bring even more local unit members alongside of
mhm,
us and say, "Hey, we need your voice. Hey, sign on. Hey, we've got
mhm.
this meeting. Please show up." And
Yeah.
it becomes just that much more powerful.
And does it matter if it's 5 or it's 50? I mean, or is it
Well,
numbers?
I don't know that it's numbers. I think it's passion.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
Numbers certainly helps. There's no disputing that. If you have 50
mhm,
people show up on your Zoom or you have 2 people show up on your Zoom,
mhm,
everybody's
mhm.
passionate, right? It all counts. But
Right,
the more
right.
people that you can get
Mhm.
involved, the stronger that voice is for our kids and
Yeah,
our families.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So one final question on this is, just what I find is really, really interesting. You mentioned it in the intro a little bit. You've worked at all these different levels, and you just made reference to the other boards that you're on. How has your perspective changed now, having had the opportunity to sit in leadership seats at
Mhm.
different places in a state structure and even a national structure?
Yeah. Um, I think just seeing the impact right in front of your nose, because when
Mhm,
you're not in the thick of it, you do everything you can, you hope it works. But when you're in the leadership positions, you actually get to see what
mhm,
works, how it impacts. We're able to relay that back and say, hey, your presence made a difference, and here's what we
mhm,
accomplished.
mhm,
For example, through PTAs, we have done so much. We've had school immunizations, we've had hot lunches,
mhm,
they've helped develop the juvenile justice system. Before that,
mhm,
everybody was treated like an adult. There's just so
mhm.
many accomplishments there.
Yeah,
So when more people come together, we can have bigger impact.
mhm.
But
That must feel really good, though.
yeah, but every single voice helps.
Yep, mhm. Yeah, what I
If
love about your story is it just shows how much, what a community can do when they come together, and
Mhm.
then and they must, as a result of doing that work together, it really must build trust and relationships.
It does. And so an interesting thing that just happened to us is that our representative in Washington came home and is now our governor.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
I had built that relationship and now I have no qualms of
mhm.
walking into his office,
Yeah,
accessing him however we need to, and
yep,
saying, "Hey, we
mhm,
really need to visit about this." And because I've worked with him and I know his background and that, I know what he's passionate about. And I know he has an understanding and appreciation for education and families. His own mother was a teacher. So when you start to know some of those things about your representatives, then it helps you kind of tailor or craft your approach instead of just walking in, because really what resonates are those stories and those connections. And that's what they carry with them.
Yep. I think two things are really important for the audience. There's a great nugget, the importance of storytelling, and then how these relationships evolve over time so that you can craft a message that the person will respond to.
Yep.
Yeah. So now I want to flip over to the role of school board. You know, the First Aid Educate is focused solely on this. I mean, this is our mission. We build the capacity of school board members. And that's, you know, for some who are seated, some who want to transition off and we think about succession plans, some who want to transition on and we help them know about their role, and then some just members of the community who want to engage with the board but really don't understand. So we see capacity building as much broader. But let's talk a little bit about, from your perspective, you know, what's it like? Why are boards important? And what are the kinds of decisions that boards really are grappling with?
Well, that's an interesting question. Boards are grappling with a lot of things because of our political environment, because of funding, because of beliefs. Boards are important because they are largely parent representatives. We are elected to represent what our community wants and needs and hopes to see. And so to be able to tie that together with a superintendent as plans are being made by, you know, if it's strategic plans or if it's a decision that's coming down the pike, about buildings or programs or whatever. The way our governance works in Fargo, North Dakota is that we supervise the superintendent. So we work very closely with the superintendent and with cabinet. We authorize them to go ahead and run with the day-to-day. We don't get mired in the day-to-day. If they need to buy a new bus, they go buy a new bus. We are a little more overarching. We are more interested in results and how we get there. I believe that constant board training is necessary because the goal is always moving, and funding changes, the way things are funding changes, the policies change, the tides turn and different things are needed at different times. And so I think board knowledge needs to change along with that to be able to lead effectively.
And what about turnover on your board? Have you had a pretty consistent membership there, or has there been turnover? Because I think your election cycles are every 2 years?
Every 2 years. And when we are placed or seated, we have a 4-year term. So I'm in the middle of my second term. We do have an election coming this summer. My understanding is several people will try to retain their seats. And for the most part, that's been a good thing for us. We haven't had a whole lot of people who are hoping to really change the way that we're doing things, more so to protect the way we're doing things.
Oh, interesting.
And that doesn't mean that we don't have people that don't see things differently, but we view that as a strength. You may think of something I maybe didn't. And so we come to the table and we go, oh, that's a good point. Or somebody will bring something and we go, yep, nope, we don't want to go down that path. And okay, all right. Well, then we brought it up. We talked about it. We made the best decision possible to go forward. So we are a pretty strong team. I feel strongly and good about that. We work together. It doesn't mean we all see things the same, and that's a good thing. We can agree to disagree. We learn from each other, and then we carry what's best for our district and our students forward.
Yeah, I love that. I do think I think the art of I think it is an art of decision making when individuals come together to make decisions as a collective, because you know it's not one person's decision, it's the board's decision, and that's different from each individual.
Yep. And then we work collaboratively. We have a strong relationship with our superintendent, and we all want the same things. It's just a matter of how we get there. So it's good to have this board that's a group of parents, and it's good to have the district and come together and to meet those goals, because we don't always walk up to the table thinking the same thing. But
Exactly.
throughout
Yeah.
conversation and throughout facts, we get there.
Is it a requirement that they're parents? Do they have to have
No,
children who are in the okay.
it's not a requirement, but that's typically what we see. And we
Okay.
do have some folks that their grandchildren are in the system.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that's
Okay.
great too, because then we have some history there. So
Mm-hmm.
when we have topics where we say, well, what about this and what about that? Someone can speak to, we've tried that and here's how it went. So if we're going to
Right.
do this again, here's the tweak we can make. So
Mm-hmm.
it isn't
Mm-hmm.
just shooting it down, but to be able to maintain some of that history so
Sure.
that we know
Yeah.
how it went or how it didn't work out is
Mm-hmm.
useful to all of us.
Yeah. I think the stability, I mean, there's something to be said for stability, for
We
sure.
have had turnover in superintendents as recently as last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from one strong superintendent to the next one. And they were both strong people, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
different
Different.
areas.
Yeah.
And it's critical that you can all come together and talk through those things.
Yep. And can we talk a little bit about your policy development practices that you review them, I think, annually? I mean, the policies
Our
come up and
school
you
board
relook at
does.
them?
Yep,
Yeah.
our school board does. We have a rotation that every year we have a
Mhm.
calendar. And every
Mhm.
year at a certain time, we look at each policy and we go through it. Oftentimes, we don't make a change.
Mhm.
Many times we might tweak something little here or a little there. It just depends
Yeah.
kind of on how the world's going and what our
Sure.
community expects to see. But it's good that we have our eyeballs on it, even if we go through it
Mhm.
and say, yep, we're good on this one. We'll review it again next year.
Yep.
We just have that rotating calendar
Uh-huh.
of our policies to take a look at.
And is part of that when you're doing the review process? I mean, there's a degree of, I think, in the policy review and probably in the the selection and evaluation of a superintendent and in approving a budget. There's critical thinking that a board engages in,
Mhm.
right? I mean, how do you make sure that people are staying? You alluded to it a little earlier. You discuss things, who agrees, who doesn't agree, but how does a board? What are some of good practices for a board to keep an open mind or to be sort of evidence driven rather than personality driven?
Well, and that is really, how if I could probably make a million if I could figure out how to create a formula. For us, we have a really dedicated team that really takes the time to dig in and do the prep before the meetings.
Mhm.
So we reach out, we ask administration, we get the board packets, we go through it. If there's something we don't understand or need to see differently, and that
Mhm.
doesn't take away from the discussion at the board table.
Mhm.
That just means we're better prepared. And we
Mhm.
do have administration that joins us. And
Mhm.
so for the public's benefit, it's not a public involved meeting necessarily. It's more a public
Mhm.
informed meeting, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes we ask those questions so that it's out there and the public can see it. All our meetings are recorded. They can pull them up on our website.
Mhm.
So constituents can reach out and say, hey, why did you decide this? Or what went into
Mhm.
that thinking? They can access all the minutes, all the notes, everything that we
Mhm.
see. Sometimes it's just quicker for them just to ask the question.
For
I'm sure
sure.
people
For
will
sure.
understand that.
Yeah.
But we have a strong team all the way around that, and our admin is willing to have us stop in or call or text or
Mhm.
whatever it is and explain whatever the question is so that we're well prepared at the table. And
Yeah.
our community
I
expects
like I like what you said about there's a difference between, and I think it's an important aspect of board conversation. It's community, the community is informed, but they're not participating in the
Mhm.
conversation, and that's by design.
Yeah.
But then there is an opportunity for them to engage, to share their points
Mhm.
of view, in
Yeah.
part through public comment. But
Mhm.
then, you were elected to represent your constituents, so they also have the opportunity to convey to you or to communicate with you
Mhm.
what they think and feel.
And I think thankfully, gratefully, the school boards that I've been serving on, even with turnover, everybody's invested in doing the right thing. So if people reach out, we need to be able to defend. And I think everybody's acutely aware of that. Why did
Yeah,
you vote that way? Here's why
yeah,
I voted that way.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and everything's accessible to them. But yeah, you
yeah.
need to be able to defend what you do.
Yep, exactly. Now, one last question on this. How does this translate into kind of trust building among board members? I mean, you're describing a great process. People are showing up prepared. They're allowing people to ask questions. They're having meaningful and robust public discussion. You have a calendar and regular processes for reviewing policies and these, you know what I mean? It sounds like there's internal. How does all of this come together to make for a better functioning board, which is definitely what it sounds like? But really, it's the people that they have trust with each other. So how does that, I mean, is trust really that important among school board members?
Trust is hugely important. And building that sometimes can be a bit tricky, right? Because we have to do everything that we do. If there's, I think, 3 or more board members together, it all has to be noticed. Doesn't mean you can't do it.
Right.
But I had talked earlier about board training. And for us, the opportunities to attend some of these things give us a chance to get to better know the person. We get to better know their positions, their standings. It makes us stronger at the table to be able to do that. I was thinking of something and then I lost track of it. But we know how each other is going to perform for the most part at the table. Even as recently as yesterday, I was in a meeting and one of the gentlemen said, I don't see it the same way you guys do. And which is okay. And I'm glad he felt comfortable enough to say that. And so my point to that is that everybody feels heard and there's discussion around it. So for him to be able to bring that up, and then we said, oh, tell us more about that instead of just, oh, we don't want to hear from you.
Yeah. I think these are fabulous. These are fabulous practices. And I think, it's the heart of what our work is and what this podcast is intended to do, is to surface things that, it's kind of like, oh, sure, that makes sense. But if somebody didn't say it out loud, I might not have thought of it on my own. You know what I mean? And so I just think it's wonderful that you've created such a high functioning board. So congratulations for that. I mean, that's no small feat.
Thank you, but I didn't do it alone. I'm just grateful we have people that want to perform in that way. I think one of the only other things I can say is keep an open mind. When you read through your board packets, I've prepared, I've researched, and I think I know where I want to be on a particular vote. I've also kept my mind open that when we come to the table, and again, because we have diverse thought, not because we're doing battle, but sometimes I come to the table and I go, I didn't think of that. I thought of everything else.
Right.
I didn't think of that piece. And so keep an open mind, because there might be something there you haven't thought about. So don't come 100% locked in. You might hear something that changes your mind at the table. Just be open to that.
Yep. No, I think that's important in a board setting, and it's important anywhere, right? I mean, that's just a good thing to do. Yeah. So last thing I wanted to round out our show, you mentioned it earlier. You mentioned about, talking to legislators, elected officials, and now that the former congressperson is now the governor. We're trying to also create access points for Delaware school board members to engage meaningfully with other elected officials. And the intent is to create alignment in the system, because if you have something happening at the state level, right, with a legislative body at the state, but then there's no communication or there's no opportunity for two-way communication, I might not even understand the thing that I read. You know what I mean? Like the legislative, but sometimes people having the opportunity to share, I think the goal is to allow boards to play a more meaningful role in driving that kind of change so that we're all rowing in one direction.
Right. And as board members, we have to be careful about what we support. You can support a cause. You can't get behind any particular person for us. Right. But we have developed relationships with neighboring school districts. We have come together. I threw my hat in the ring to serve on our state school board association. So I've gotten to know a different level of folks. And again, they work at a different level. So I've met those people. Now through my PTA work, I met several of those people prior to. I volunteered for task forces. These opportunities are generally available and posted on your state website through your state Department of Public Instruction. So I would recommend, if you have someone that is an interest, that they pursue those things, to be involved. That's how you make those connections. Yep. And Delaware, I know our national president is from Delaware,
Uh-huh.
and she's
She is.
amazing. And
Yes.
being involved in PTA gives you those tools. People don't think about
Mm-hmm.
that. People think, oh, it
Yeah.
depends on the different level of it. But we give you those advocacy tools. We help train you for that. We help train you for leadership. These are skills you can carry across any other
Mm-hmm.
thing that you do in your life, whether it's at your
Right.
church or at your work. We
Mm-hmm.
offer that training and we offer that connection. We've been going to the Hill every year, unless we couldn't. If we had to do it
Mm-hmm.
virtually, we still did it virtually.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Mm-hmm.
happy to have us. We meet the staffers, we meet with those folks, unless they're just not available. But
Right.
it's been a really good experience. And when you do that, then sometimes they say, I want you to talk to so and so at the state. So again, that can work
Ah,
way backwards. And you
sure.
might, like in my case, I might say, oh, yeah, I know them and I've worked with them. Now, we just had a recent turnover in our state superintendent as well.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I knew very well because I had worked with our last superintendent,
Uh-huh.
state superintendent, and now I know the gentleman from way, way, way
Mhm.
back at the beginning of my
Uh-huh.
PTA career who was placed into that position. So
Hmm.
it kind of circles around,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, I think Delaware shares a lot of similarities there because it's not a large state, and one of the strengths that we have is that there's a strong sense of community. I mean, people in these communities really know each other. There's generations of people who have been connected, and I think it builds trust for sure.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about what you're on this the government affairs committee, and you said you
Mhm.
volunteer for these other roles on task forces. Like what's
Yeah.
that like? I mean, maybe we could lift the lid or lift the hood a little bit so
Yeah.
people know they might want to, but not really know what they're getting themselves into.
Right. Well, PTA, we have a legislative committee, and I am our state
Hmm.
representative on that
Hmm.
legislative committee because I am past president. So now I'm able to assume other roles, but you don't have to
Hmm.
serve as president to take on a role.
Okay.
Um, and through our school board, we also have a government affairs committee, which I also serve on. So for me, for this kind of developing into a passion, it was easy for me to stay involved because I just kind of weaved my way through and found out where I could be
Hmm.
helpful. It's hard to get rid of a useful person, right? Uh,
Right.
so I enjoy that advocacy piece. ESSA was pushed for by PTA. It
Hmm.
was the update to No Child Left Behind, and PTA pushed and
Hmm.
pushed and pushed for that. We advocated for that every year and finally got it through. So our state actually took us on and said, this was a PTA initiative. We need PTA
Hmm.
representatives to serve.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that opened a whole wide door. But ever
Yeah,
since
great.
then, yeah, ever since then, there have been other task forces that you can
Hmm.
throw your hand in the air for, or they often think of you for and say, this is a
Right.
place where we need this representation.
Yep.
So if
Hmm.
you serve on a school board, be as active as you can,
Right.
just be
Yeah.
mindful of your lines.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh,
I love hard to get rid of a useful person.
yeah.
That's a good line. That's a good Nikki, this has been such a fabulous conversation. I've taken away, I mean, I've got tons of notes here just to recap for the audience. It's been fantastic. Seeing things firsthand and making sure the data bears it out. If you're not sure, just take a deep breath and go. And that passion matters. It'll carry you through. Building these relationships over time, being respectful and listening to other people's perspectives, developing those relationships and knowing what to hold steady and knowing what to change and not trying to do sort of on either end of the spectrum. Being prepared before the meetings, I think that's critical. You obviously put a lot of time and effort into what you do, but really, it's hard to get rid of a useful person. I'm gonna go with that. Nikki, fabulous conversation. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. It was a joy.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in today. We appreciate you being present. If you're looking for resources on any of these topics or more, please check out our Knowledge Hub. Thanks and see you next time.